Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2021 Austrian Grand Prix, the final race of a triple header and the second in as many weekends at the Red Bull Ring. Now, I think it's fair to say that last weekend's Styrian Grand Prix isn't going to go down as a thriller or a classic. It was one of those sort of okay races, you might say average. But cast your minds back 12 months to last year's Austrian Grand Prix and that one was very different. After what felt like around about 3 million years, but was actually around about a 7-month wait, the 2020 F1 season finally got underway. What a long wait that was. Valtteri Bottas started the race on pole position and led the field away and never really looked back from there. On lap 11, Max Verstappen, who was running in second place, slowed on track thanks to an issue with his electronics, cruised around to the pits and then retired. There was action throughout the field, to be fair, and on lap 31, Sebastian Vettel went for a huge lunge up the inside of Carlos Sainz, who had been battling with Leclerc. The two then touched, and Seb was left in a bit of a spin. George Russell retired with mechanical issues on lap 51, having been running as high as 12th place for Williams, and that triggered a first safety car. But at the restart, Kimi Raikkonen lost his right front wheel, and that brought out another safety car pretty much straight away. On lap 61, Alex Albon went for a move around the outside of Lewis Hamilton at turn 4 and the two touched again, and Albon was left in a spin, dropping through the field. And as I'm sure you'll remember, Hamilton later received a 5-second time penalty for his troubles. Lando Norris threw one, that's the only way to describe it, down the inside of Perez at turn 3 on lap 69 to take P4, and then floored it to set the fastest lap of the race on the last lap and take his first ever F1 podium. Amazing scenes. But it was Bottas who took the win with Charles Leclerc second, and as I say, Norris rounding out that top 3 and taking the point for fastest lap. And with Daniel Kvyat's tyre blowing up late on and Albon retiring in the end, just 11 cars made it to the checkered flag. What a crazy start to last season that race was. And we've actually, to be fair, had a great first third of this season too, so let's start looking ahead to this weekend. Usually, I would do the track stats at this stage, but there's nothing much to say really, as it's still the same as last week, right down to the 3 DRS zones and track limits. But I will whack a graphic on screen now for those who missed the preview last week, but it's all the same as last week's graphic, so let's move on. Whilst there are no changes to the track this weekend, there are changes to the tyres. I know, calm yourself, it's okay, it's very exciting. The compounds available are a step softer than they were last time out, and so that's the hard C3, the medium C4, and the soft C5. There's not much point looking at last year's tyre data, as we do have much more up-to-date information thanks to the Styrian Grand Prix last week, with the winning strategy for that one being a one-stop of Verstappen starting on the mediums and switching to the hards. But with the compounds being a step softer and some drivers' tyres, like Hamilton for example, showing signs of blistering last weekend, we could see some teams being pushed towards making a second stop, so that could spice things up a little bit. And by the way, on the tyres relevant to this weekend, the longest stints for Styria were 41 laps on the C3 and 31 on the C4, which are, as already covered, the hards and mediums for Austria. What about the weather though? Could it throw a curveball and mix things up a little bit as well? The forecast at time of recording is for a dry weekend with highs of 20 degrees expected on Friday and 24 on Saturday, with less than a 20% chance of rain for both days, so it's not looking likely. And on Sunday, that chance climbs to 40% and temperatures are forecast to reach 20 degrees. However, massive caveat to stick in here. Last weekend's forecast was for rain, rain and more rain, and it stayed dried pretty much all weekend aside from a few spots during practice on Friday. So maybe we should expect the opposite this time around, who knows? And it's worth bearing in mind of the 4 forecasts I've looked at so far, they all vary a little bit but seem to be sticking to the likely to stay dry line. Before I move on, there are some driver changes currently set to take place for FP1 on Friday morning. Roy Nissany will be taking George Russell's place at Williams, with Callum Ilott hopping into Antonio Giovinazzi's Alfa Romeo seat, and Guan Yu Zhou will be getting his chance with Alpine as he gets behind the wheel of Fernando Alonso's car, so keep an eye on those 3 this weekend. It is also worth noting that Pirelli will be testing a new rear construction of tyre during practice, with each driver getting 2 sets of the new tyres, which can be used during either of the free practice sessions at the Red Bull Ring. If the change in construction is deemed suitable following the running, then the new rear spec will be introduced from the British Grand Prix. Now, according to Pirelli, the new rear construction, quote, incorporates some elements that have been developed for use in the latest 18-inch tyres from 2022, and added that the new structure, again, quote, provides a tyre that guarantees even greater levels of integrity under the extreme conditions that can be generated by the current cars. So, as well as the 3 stand-ins in FP1, that's something else to keep an eye on over the course of practice. And it will be interesting to see if the drivers feel much of a difference between the two different constructions, and if those are then introduced at Silverstone, if that makes any difference to how things are currently in terms of the pecking order. I'd be surprised, but we've seen tyre changes mid-season in the past that have made a difference in some places. Coming up, I'll go over some driver form and make some predictions that will inevitably annoy someone somewhere, but first up, let's fly through some fast facts courtesy of Lights Out blog. Including the 2 Styrian Grand Prix, there have been a total of 34 F1 races held at the Red Bull Ring as it's now known. Since 1970, 23 different drivers have taken victory at the track, with Jackie Ickx being the first and of course Max Verstappen the most recent. 21 different drivers have taken pole position at the circuit and 52 different drivers have made it to the podium. Here's one for you. The Red Bull Ring sits 600 metres above sea level, and there is a difference of 63.6 metres between the highest and lowest points on the track. And if Max Verstappen wins this weekend, he will become the driver to have notched up the most victories at the track with 4, having tied with Alain Prost on 3 last weekend. Right then, let's have a look at some driver form for Austria. And as I said last week, I'll pick 5 different drivers out at random for this one. Sebastian Vettel has never won in Austria, but has made it onto the podium twice, finishing 2nd in 2017 and 3rd in 2018, both times for Ferrari. His form is slightly mixed though, as on top of his podiums he has scored 3 more times, but has also failed to finish on 3 occasions. Seb has failed to make it into the top 10 in qualifying 3 times as well, and they were in 2014, 2020 and last weekend. The German of course going on to finish the race in 12th on Sunday. Pierre Gasly failed to finish last weekend thanks to that contact with Charles Leclerc, and that was the first time he's failed to make it to the end of a race at the Red Bull Ring. And if you're wondering, the Frenchman finished 11th in 2018, 7th in 2019, 7th again in 2020 and 15th a week later. Gasly has made it into Q3 at the track on 3 occasions, with his best qualifying result being 6th in Styria last time out. He has also only been out-qualified by a teammate once at the track, and that was Max Verstappen in 2019. Kimi Raikkonen will make his 13th appearance at the Red Bull Ring this weekend. Let's hope that's not an omen. He's never won at the track though, but has finished 2nd twice, once in 2003 and once in 2018. He also made it to the podium in 2016, finishing 3rd. He has, though, notched up 4 DNFs over the years, including at last season's Austrian Grand Prix where he lost, of course, that wheel, but the Finn has scored on 4 occasions to add to his podium finishes. Charles Leclerc seems to enjoy this track, having scored at all but 1 appearance at the circuit, and that was last year's Styrian Grand Prix where he retired. As I'm sure you'll remember, he picked up 2 consecutive second-place finishes in 2020 and 2019, having led for most of the race in 19, only to be passed by Max Verstappen late on. Leclerc took pole position for that race as well and has made it into Q3 2 more times, qualifying 7th in 2020 and last weekend as well. And Nicholas Latifi has 3 F1 races under his belt at the Red Bull Ring, finishing 17th last weekend, 17th again at the Styrian Grand Prix in 2020, and picked up 11th place the week before at the season opener. On top of his F1 appearances, he also raced at the track in F2, scoring points at 5 of his last 6 races at the circuit in that series, 6 of his last 8 if we include GP2, with the best result of P2 which he picked up in the 2018 feature race. That all leads us on nicely to my predictions then. Before I get there though, usual caveat at this stage, these are just my predictions based on past form and what my gut is telling me, which I'll accept is often wrong. And if you disagree with my picks, you can let me know yours down in the comments section, but don't forget this is just a little bit of fun and there's no need to take them too seriously whatsoever. You can just give some grief in the race reaction on Sunday. With all of that out of the way, though, I actually think my predictions last week were some of the worst I've ever done. I'm usually mostly wrong, but my word was I way off last time out. I mean, the top 3 was correct, but the order was wrong, and I was way off with which team I thought would be the fastest. And with that in mind, as last weekend is the most up-to-date info we have, the fact there are few changes, tyre compounds aside, and that there has only been a week in between events, I can't see us getting an astronomically different result on Sunday unless we get some rain and or a slice of chaos. Simply put, Lewis Hamilton finished more than 35 seconds behind Max Verstappen, which does include that extra pit stop, of course, but even prior to that, he was, around 10, 12, 14 seconds behind, somewhere around there. And I just don't see how Mercedes will be able to make up all of that time in a week, really less than a week, I suppose. Therefore, it's Verstappen all the way for me this time around. Yes, that's pole and the win once again. And I do still think we are looking at a season of Verstappen-Hamilton or Hamilton-Verstappen as a top 2 for the most part. So I will stick the Brits second. Sure, Bottas without a penalty could be up there, but even after he had made his way into the top 3 last weekend, he wasn't exactly cruising up to the back of the leaders. With that in mind, I reckon it's between Bottas and Perez for the final podium spot, and I'm going to go with Checo. He was super quick on those fresher tyres late on last weekend, and had he had one more lap, he would probably have ended up P3, and indeed, without that slow pit stop, would likely have been there as well. Could he challenge Hamilton for second? Maybe. I mean, the Red Bull seems to be the quickest car right now, so I guess what I'm saying is never say never, but I'll stick with Verstappen, Hamilton and Perez as my top three. Behind them, I think it will be super close again between McLaren and Ferrari in the fight to be the third best team this weekend. That's pretty much the case most Grand Prix so far. Lando Norris had such a strong weekend last time out, but Ferrari showed some much better race pace than I was expecting. This is tough to call, as it always is, but I'll say McLaren to just edge it in terms of who finishes higher, but I'm going to say Ferrari will pick up a couple more points than McLaren again. That all depends, though, on whether Daniel Ricciardo can, one, find some form, and two, if he does find some form, that he doesn't then suffer a power loss. It should be a fun fight either way, though. And my last prediction for this one would perhaps have been a bold one if I'd stuck to my guns and gone with it last week, but I bottled it, so I didn't go with it, so I'm going to go with it this week instead. Given his pace across Saturday and Sunday, maybe it isn't such a bold prediction, but I'm going to say that George Russell will finally pick up his first point for Williams, maybe even points, plural. That is it, though, for the Austrian Grand Prix preview, but you can let me know your predictions ahead of the weekend in the comments section down below. So, as always, who do you think will take pole position? Who are you backing for the win? And what is your top three? But also, have you got any bold predictions? Let me know. Now, I will be back soon with another video, and we will be live at around about 5 PM UK time on Sunday with some race reaction. In the meantime, though, if you did enjoy this video, then please do leave a like, as it really does help out the channel, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future uploads or streams. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.